Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today I have a very lovely lady on the show. Her name is Christine McCarron. So do me a favor, stop what you're doing, share this out to everybody. Let's get a bunch of people on here, share it out everywhere, and stay with us because we're going to hear Christine's story of how she went from zero to hero in from what I understand, a pretty short amount of time. So stay with us. We'll be right back. And we are back. Let me bring Christine on. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ken. I'm very, very honored to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. We met through Justin, right? Breen?
Justin Breen. That's him.
That guy.
That guy.
I love that dude.
He's awesome. He is awesome.
I had him on Amazon Live the other night, and oh my God. Oh, he's so funny. He's funny. He's like,
he's funny, but he's also, when you interview him, like I interviewed him for my podcast, and like I'd say something, he'd go, "That's actually a good question," and he sort of sounded a little surprised.
I know.
I love it.
I'm like, I said, I love this about. I'm like, hey, when somebody asks you, I don't know, a question like, "What are your rates? I want to make sure I can afford you." He said, I hang up on him and I never talk to him again.
Right. If you have to ask, you can't afford me.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So Christine, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And there's my buddy and pal, Michelle Cavanaugh. So I started this a little over 5 years ago, and it was literally, I was stuck in life. And I thought, if I just hear enough other people tell how they got unstuck, and I was originally going to call it Getting Unstuck. And my wife's like, why wouldn't you use your last name and call it Breakthrough Walls?
Isn't it great to have a better half?
I know. I outkicked my coverage. So Christine, I always start with where you were born and raised. Start there and tell everybody where it all started for you.
Well, it's a very inauspicious beginning. I was born in a small town in Massachusetts, and then we moved to an even smaller town in New Hampshire. Like they say, growing up in obscurity. That was my life.
Wow.
Bedroom community. We had to drive a half hour to get to a grocery store, that kind of thing.
So New Hampshire isn't the town.
It's the state.
The whole state. Yeah, I'm just now learning that New Hampshire's not the town name. I'm kidding.
Well, from Texas, everything seems just small and insignificant.
Hey, I grew up in Ohio, and right down the road was a town called New Hampshire, Ohio. I swear.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. Interesting.
Yeah. So you can see where I might be confused still as a 55-year-old adult.
Well, this was Kingston, New Hampshire. And okay. I would have to say New Hampshire because it could be Kingston, Jamaica, Kingston, whatever,
Right,
but just Kingston, New Hampshire. Tiny little town.
So, and thank you, Zena, for sharing this out. She's a rock star. So you grew up in a little town. I grew up in a little town, so I know what that's all about. Yeah. What was it like for you as a kid? I mean, were you had both parents at home? What was life like growing up as a kid for you?
I had both parents at home, but I was always, I was a nonconformist, a person who just did not fit in. And also, which I think is true of a lot of entrepreneurs.
Most, yes.
Yeah. But I also was kind of fighting against that small townness because I feel like I was born to be in a city, and I was always doing stuff. I remember one time I wanted to go out again, and my mother's like, well, you've been out every night this week, ask your father. And so I said, "Dad, I wanna go out." And he goes like, "Why do you wanna go out?" And I thought, "Why would I wanna stay home?"
Right.
Come
No
on.
kidding. Have you guys not looked around like
Right?
so I can so relate to that. As soon as I could, I got out of the small town and moved to a big city.
Yeah, me
I
too.
I totally can relate to that. So when you and I can relate to the nonconformist. Jeez. So when you left, I mean, I assume, did you graduate from high school?
I did manage to graduate from high
Okay.
school.
I didn't. So
It's not a given for sure.
no, it's not. So you go to college then?
I went to night school. When I left school, I just went, when I left high school, I went right to work. And then
Okay.
later on at the ripe old age of 22, I said, "Oh gosh, I should probably just go to college." I was feeling bored, I guess. So I
Yeah.
went to night school.
Night school. And did you get a degree?
I did. I would have got a degree if I would continue to pay for it myself. It would have been in like English and psychology because that's what I was interested in. But because I
Yeah.
got a job where they were going to pay for it, I ended up with a business administration degree, which is a little dull.
I it sounds like you were aiming for where all the money is.
But absolutely, but also where all the fun is. There's the intersection of money and fun. That's what I was going for.
Money and fun, and throw in some English and so you started at 22. How old were you when you got your degree? At 26
I
ish.
was 25 actually.
25. Okay.
Yeah, so we can have a little insert here. 22 was when I got married. And
Okay.
so I started going to night school and it became a big issue with us. He said, "Oh, I don't want you to, I'm afraid you're going to meet someone smarter than me." And I thought, I shouldn't be.
Just that statement means I probably will.
Means I probably already know lots of people. Yeah. So
Right.
So that became an issue, and unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, the marriage ended when I was 25. So then I sort of could fast track it, and I finished it pretty quickly at that point. And I
Okay.
think I was still 25 when I graduated.
Wow. So and you were working the whole time?
I was, yeah.
What were you doing?
At that time, I was working at a place that made labels.
You were a label maker.
No, I was in customer service for the label makers.
Okay. Wow.
People would call me and say, "My labels aren't sticky enough," and I would have to help them.
That sounds exciting.
Oh, yeah, yeah, big
Yeah.
big that was the big time.
Right. Okay, you were okay, that's really does not sound exciting at all. So you how long did you do that the whole time you were going to college at night?
I'm trying to remember. Gosh, that was so long ago. I actually last week was my 60th birthday, so, like, these days are like this is, like, such ancient history, and I haven't talked about it, surprisingly. I haven't talked about it lately, but I'm pretty sure I was only there for 3 years, but I know I
Okay.
was there when I was going through my divorce because I was such a dismal
Yeah.
biatch that they were trying to get me fired because I was so miserable in my marriage, and that's when I realized, "Oh my gosh, I'm miserable in my marriage, and so I'm making everyone else miserable. Why don't I just get the heck out of it?" So I
Did
did.
did you just say biatch?
Am I allowed to say the other one?
You can say whatever you want. I don't judge. Um, so okay, so you got out of your marriage. Again, I can relate to that. You moved on and got your degree. Where did things go from there? Because your story is you went from $0 net worth to seven-figure net worth. And I'm excited to hear about that too. But I want to hear the beginning stages. What was how did life go after your divorce and getting your degree? Divorce and degree, double D.
Yeah, I mean, when I left my husband, I don't know why we didn't have anything, but somehow we didn't have anything. So I like the first night I left, I managed to stay in a hotel, but after that, I slept in my car a little bit. I
Oh,
slept,
wow.
the whole sad, pathetic story. But that continued, that sort of loser mentality continued for quite a while, and it was what the part that you're talking about was when I turned 50, which was, like, 25 years after this whole experience.
Right.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
but there's
I
a
had a
lot of stuff that happened in that 25 years,
You
right?
got that right. Yeah, I became a subject matter expert for a software company eventually, and then I lived overseas for a while. I came back. I started my own import company.
Wait. Where'd you live overseas?
Yeah, just in London. Nowhere too exotic, but
Oh, so you didn't have to learn another language. They do speak a
oh, are you
little
kidding?
funny there.
Yeah, I definitely had to learn that language, the other
Yeah,
English.
right, right. So the other English. I have I have a buddy. I can't even talk about him. I have a buddy over there that he's nuts, like nuts. And anyway, so you lived in London for how long?
2 years.
Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
that's fantastic.
Why?
I was transferred there with my job.
Oh,
Yep, as a subject matter expert. I was,
subject matter. What is that?
right? Exactly.
You're like, I have no idea. I just showed up for the meetings and they paid. I don't.
Do do you ever see The Office? So, like, I translated between the people who spoke the bank language and the people who spoke the software language. That
Oh
was
my
me.
god. You're like, I deliver the reports to the engineers. I'm a people person. So, right? That's my favorite movie. So, um, so you came back from London. How old were you? And did you ever remarry? Did you what? No. You were
No.
like, no, I'm good.
No, been there, done that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, got the
So,
T-shirt. I'm good.
yeah. So you came back from London, single, ready to mingle, and with the same job?
Well, actually, I quit my job
Oh, while
because
you
I
were in London.
well, yeah, because they were gonna the company was going through changes and stuff like that, so they were gonna call me back anyway.
Yeah.
And I said and it had become kinda toxic. Whenever I would go like, people who were there didn't notice it so much, but I was away, and I'd come back and I'd be like, "Oh, everybody's complaining," and blah, so I was just like, "Eh." And
Yeah.
so I moved back in with my parents,
Nice.
as you do at
At
25, you know.
at 20 at
It's
25?
actually not that unusual now,
You
but,
weren't
yeah.
25, you had to have been older than that.
Oh, that's right. So how old was I?
You had to have been closer to 30?
Yeah. I think I was actually I don't know, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was like 2002.
Okay.
So if we do the math, I would have been
Yeah.
in my 30s, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did that in my 30s. I get
Yeah.
it.
It's fun.
So, okay. Um, I mean, so far your patterns are I'm an entrepreneur, just hadn't recognized yet. Right?
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
but okay, so you are fresh back from England, living with your parents, jobless, and some kind of a mosh posh of an accent, I'm sure at this point. Like you're like, I don't know if I should have the Boston accent, the English, so okay, where did things go from there, from living at mom and dad's?
So I just feel like in retrospect, I was just so naive. No wonder it took me a while to make any money. I decided that I was going to become a consultant. So I'm like, I'm going to be a consultant. I took this course, How to Become a Consultant, and
Okay.
they had you fill out this form, 4 questions. What
Yeah.
have you done before for work? What do you do for fun? What are the components of those jobs that you most enjoyed? And if no matter what you did, you'd make $200,000 a year, what would you do? So I looked back at all my answers and stuff and crossed things out and blah, and I came up with traveling and shopping. And I was like, that's it. I'll be a professional shopper and I'll travel the world buying stuff for rich people.
There you go.
So I send that into the instructor and he's like, oh, that's actually a job. It's called importing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm an importer. Let's go. And so I started an import company.
How did that go?
You know, about as well as you'd expect a person who knows absolutely nothing about
Nothing.
importing. But
Right.
I flew overseas. I, went to some countries, and I actually did the job for 2 years. Didn't make any money, but it was a really great, fun experience.
S But you owned the company?
Yes, it was called Hungry Lion Imports,
So
and
you
our
went into debt for this.
oh, yeah, and, afterwards, I was like, I could have traveled and just had a great time for 2 years and lost a lot less money.
Right, right.
Yeah, but,
So, okay, so you went over to do what? To just to like find some vases that you could import for
yeah,
rich
I
people.
I went back to Morocco, which was one of the countries that I loved visiting when I was in the UK,
Sure.
and bought some stuff there. I bought, like, wooden boxes and, like, the crazy goat skin lamps and all kinds of fun things there, and then I went to Egypt and bought some stuff, and just as a whim for a friend of mine, I got a belly dancing scarf, and that ended up being, like, our big product was belly dancing supplies before
For
yeah, I was the first person on Amazon to sell belly dancing
for
scarves.
rich people in the US. Like
Because that's a thing, right?
well, I don't know. I mean, I've never thought about it. I'll ask my wife later, "Do you think if I got you a belly dancing scarf?" Okay, so that's crazy. Okay, how so you said you did that for a couple of years, and there came a point where you said, "I can't do this anymore."
But you know why? It wasn't even the money, it was becoming boring, right?
Oh,
I started the job to travel and shop, and what
yeah,
was I doing? Putting things in boxes and, right? I mean, the fun was and the other thing is you have to go to the same country over and over and over again, so
yeah.
where's the fun in that?
I think what would have been really cool is if you were packing these boxes and you needed to put a label on and the damn thing wasn't sticky enough. Full circle, full circle.
And I
Like,
could
I
call the
got
customer
the
service
non-sticky
person.
labels, what the hell?
Oh, Ken, you're awesome.
That would have been fun, like,
That would've been
I'm
really
calling
good.
customer service right now, you bastards. So, you
It was
sent
the
me
sap that took my job. Let's go.
that's hilarious. Anyway, you got bored. I can relate to that. You got bored and you did you shut it down? I mean, what you certainly didn't sell it. I would have. Was there
No,
anything to
no, no.
sell?
Well, so this was actually the kiss of death. I bought a space and I thought, well, I'm gonna buy a storefront. And
Oh,
then while I'm sitting
good
around
move.
packing
Good
boxes,
move.
I can also have people walk in. And so I did get to
Right.
buy some other stuff, but then I was like a trapped animal in the store all day, pacing around like, blah, 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 blah. That was so I sold the building that was in.
Okay.
And I ran into before I did that though, I ran into a friend of mine because I'm like, what should I do? What can I do with my life? I ran into a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in years, and she said, "Oh, I just passed my real estate test." And I'm like, "Oh, wow." And I thought it was like 2008. I'm like, "Isn't this a horrible time to be in real estate?" And she goes, "Well, I'm doing rentals in Boston." I'm like, "All right, let's go." So I called her up the next morning and I was like, "Would you feel like I was copying you if I got my real estate license?" She's like, "No, of course not." I said, "Do you think your boss would hire me?" And she's like, "I'm sure he would." So that day I went, I took the class, you take you have to at that
Yeah.
time it was
Yeah.
20 hours, took
Yeah.
that, passed the test, went and interviewed with the guy. He said I had my van, right? So I had this big giant van that had a big Hungry Lion logo on the side. He said, "Well, you need a four-seater with a four doors." I'm like, "Okay." Drove home from the interview, traded in my truck, traded in the van, bought a car, picked it up on the Wednesday and started my job. So like in like a week and a half, I went from importer to real estate agent.
I would have been like, "Dude, do you know how many people I can fit in my van?" Like,
Right? Like
way more
what's
than
the problem?
4. Like,
I mean, the fact that there are only 2 seats, that's, like, totally doable. That's
we'll
totally
put
fixable.
lawn chairs back there or something.
Exactly.
So you traded in and you started selling real estate? Is that what you were doing?
At that point, I was doing rentals. So I had
What's that mean?
college kids driving college kids around to apartments rented by
Oh,
college kids that were
oh,
filled with, used food containers and Right.
Good Lord, have
Yeah,
mercy.
yeah,
And
that was
how
fun.
like you, how old were you at this point?
So I would have been, yeah, like 45.
Wow, driving college kids around looking at
Yeah.
rentals.
It's a good job
That
for a 20-year-old, actually.
that sounds like, yeah, wow. And you made what commission if they signed a lease for,
Exactly. You make half the rental amount. So,
wow.
yeah.
Okay. So that does not sound fun. I'm just going to be honest. So at some point, and you never got remarried along that journey. No love
No,
interest.
I'm in a long-term relationship now, but
Okay.
there's no wedding on the horizon. It's just I just don't see
Yeah.
the need right at this point. I'm not gonna be having kids or anything, so
Yeah. I
I mean,
got
maybe if you had health insurance or something, it might make sense.
Oh my that's gotta be like in your dating profile. Like you have to have health insurance
If there's
or
no
we can't
benefits,
go
like,
out.
what's the point?
Yeah, that's so funny. So, what's the point? So you okay, so you how long did you do that? Driving college like the rental thing? How
It wasn't long before I decided that I wanted to do sales instead, right? Why aren't I selling real estate instead of renting
right?
apartments? And I actually said to my broker, I said, "Look, I want to start, why aren't we doing sales in this office?" And he's like, "I have a niche. I have a niche. I'm great at doing rentals." And then I brought him the first commission check from a sale and he's like, "Oh, we could do some sales." I'm like, "Okay, good."
What the heck?
Yeah. So I'm
Was
still a real estate agent, and I'm actually a real estate broker now, and that's a big part of my,
oh wow.
wealth thing.
Yeah.
But
So this guy that you worked for as an agent, did you is that you sold under his brokerage or
yeah.
you went to another brokerage?
No, I sold under his brokerage for a while, and then I
Oh,
left. That was like a boutique firm, and then eventually I left there and went to Remax.
okay. Um, so talk about because there was a moment, I believe, I think, from what I can tell, there was a moment where you had a shift, an awakening, something. What happened? Because I know that there had to be this because I know a lot of realtors and let's be honest, most realtors sell a couple houses a year and don't and that's average, not all. So
Right, right, yeah.
don't send me any hate mail. I don't want to hear that. But your most realtors struggle.
Yeah.
Ha-
The last
did-
time the last time I saw the stats, which was a couple years ago, the average real estate agent made $8,800 a year in commissions.
that's like one big sale or half, no, not even big sale.
Right, right. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so where did you fall in with the whole sales thing? Did you do okay?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing better than that, obviously,
Yeah,
but I
right.
had still so much debt from Hungry Lion that I was paying off and credit cards everywhere and all that kind of crap. So, I was not doing great, and that's what happened, right? At 50 years old, I didn't feel like I could afford to, because when I first started working there, I owned 2 pieces of property that were actually underwater. So I
Yeah.
ended up, it took time. I got out of those, did short sales, paid off all my debt. And because I didn't feel like I could afford to do more, I was living in a house with 4 other people, 4 y no, 5 other people. So there were 2 couples and 1 guy. I did have my own bathroom, so that was a thing. But
Wow.
right, other than that, a 4-bedroom house with 5 other people, all in their 20s naturally, because who the heck, what freaking 49-year-old is living in that kind of an environment? And
Holy
I'm 50, I turned 50 and I'm like, "You are a complete freaking loser. Oh my God."
and this was in and you were living with 5 other people
Yeah.
turning 50.
Yes.
Christine.
Right? That it was
Wow.
that was my 0 period. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's
I turned
huge.
50, I spent 3 weeks wallowing in my own self-pity, And then I went to my aunt's 100th birthday party. So imagine this. So my dad's one of 10. My aunt was the oldest. She was 20 years older than my dad. So we walk into her 100th birthday party. She's sitting there. She was the coolest person. She's still painted at 103 years old. She did oil painting, still painting at 103. But 100 years old, we walk in, she's got this tiara. She's got a sash that says 100, 100th birthday. She looked like Miss America.
Yeah.
Everybody who comes in. So one of 10, how many aunts and uncles and cousins and people do I have in my family? Everybody who comes in, she's like, "Oh, here comes Brianna. She's, her birthday is, just March 15th, and she's going to be 8 years old," and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, is that Brianna? Like, I couldn't have picked half these people out of a lineup because
Right.
Just
Right.
once I knew my cousins, I knew that part.
Yeah.
She was so sharp. And I stood there across the room looking at her, and I thought, oh my God, your life is not over. You have potentially 50 more years to get your act together. And so that just like, I was like, I made like a list. What are all the stupid loser shit that you want to get rid of, And, I saw your interview with Brian Tracy, right? Write your goals down, do your thing, right? And I started to actually do that, even though I'm sure if you had asked me 10 years earlier, I would have known that that was a thing, but I hadn't actually done it the right way, right? I had this thing, make $1 million, before I'm 52, or right, all these stupid goals that didn't have any basis in reality. And then I started to say, okay, what needs to change? And so that same year, I bought not my first piece of real estate, but a piece of real estate that was like the beginning of all of this. Cause now we're at the bottom of the market. It's a foreclosure. It's something I can afford. I got partners, and that just kind of like fixed that one up, sold it, fixed, bought two more, fixed that one, bought two more, and just.
So you started flipping them?
It was not really a flip. It was because I was living in them, so it took too long to do them to call it a flip. But
okay.
yeah, like a long-term flip, which is okay because then you are when the market's going up, a long-term flip is not horrible because you've got it's your home, so you've got the residential exemption.
Right.
You've got the market's on your side. The market's going in the direction that you want it to go while you're doing that work. But so I made some really smart decisions, smart investments, turned some places that were ugly into really beautiful, cute, adorable places, and had a good time. And then, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, look, I do, I am worthy. I can make money. I'm not a total loser, right?
Right. Well, no, I mean, it's so I think that, setting goals is so important and writing them down, like Brian says. Write it down, write it down, write it down.
Yeah.
What do you think? Just random question. I'm not trying to go back in the past, but what do you think held you down, held you back for so long? I mean, 50 years, like it or not, is a very long time to not be achieving shit. Pardon my language. But it's a long time to not achieve. Like, I woke up at 50 and I'm living with 5 people that aren't
people who are just out of college, right?
They were just out of college?
Oh yeah, they were in their early 20s.
Oh my gosh.
Including the guy who owned the house was in his early 20s.
Oh my Lord, have mercy.
Yeah, I know. Wow. That's really embarrassing.
No, and, it's part of your story. It's not, I don't think it's embarrassing.
It's what made me what I am today.
Right? Well, you're a millionaire today, so it doesn't, it doesn't matter. But I think that for the audience's sake, try saying that really fast. I think it's important to know that, because I had Grant Cardone on the day after he finished filming Undercover Billionaire. And I said to him, I said, well, dude, it's not too late, right? Like he goes, I don't know. It might be too late for some people, and I know what he's saying. I get what he's saying. We don't know when this expires.
Right.
You can look at your aunt and say, well, she lived to be 100 and whatever, but
will I?
What if that's not the cards for you?
Well, but you can say that to a 25-year-old, to be honest. I mean, it's less likely, but you, of course, none of us know when it's going to end.
Yes. Right. So that's what I'm trying to say is tell people that it's not too late.
It
Like,
is never too late.
it's never too late.
It's never too late. And if I mean, it might feel too late. I've actually had people like 38 say to me, "Oh, I'm too old to go back to school." Like, seriously?
38.
What? Like, oh, okay. So you spend the next 38 years of your life doing that, right? I mean, come on.
You,
The
you
We're
don't
here
think
to like,
about it. You just don't think. I turned 55 on July 17th, and
"Oh, happy birthday."
well, it's just, and I was like, God, I didn't think I was gonna live this long. What's going on? Like, you just don't. It comes though,
Yeah.
right?
But you're right, it seems so old when you're young. You're like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna just be like, so,
55.
if I might." I never thought I was gonna live past 21 when I was in school. When I was in high school and, I thought, "Oh, 21 is my expiration date," but
Same.
so then at 22, I'm like, "Now what?" And that's probably why I got married at 22 because I was like, I might as well. I got,
Yeah. I mean, I'm
what else
gonna
am I gonna
die
do?"
soon anyway. Why not? I mean, I think though that people need to realize that anything's possible. So talk about you. So you were 51, 52 years old when you started buying real estate, and you, so you weren't flipping. It wouldn't have been called flipping. Were you just keeping them and renting them? What were you doing?
No, I mean, it's sort of like a long-term flip. So
Oh,
I bought the first one. I spent about, a year and a half fixing it up.
okay.
And then at a certain point, I was like, well, because I was seeing someone and we were thinking about moving in together and it was like a 600 square foot house. So I'm like, this ain't gonna
Oh,
work. So I sold it. And the way the market was, it worked out fantastic because I was able to buy a home in the White Mountains, which ended up becoming a vacation rental, and another primary residence, which I turned into a 2-family, and it just ended up, it started a really beautiful chain reaction
yeah,
of, having passive income, regular income, some that I earned, some that just popped into my inbox,
yeah, yeah,
mailbox money.
yeah. Nothing wrong with that at
And
all.
but you had asked before, like, why it took so long, and I honestly think it's because I had this fear of being different, I
Yeah,
guess you could say. So being better than your family, better than your friends, like, you
yeah.
just don't, you grow up in a small town. Like, here's a terrible thing that happened to me. When I was in the 6th grade, they took 3 of us and they created our own class because we were so smart. They put us in our own class, just the 3 of us. Now, can you imagine the ostracization that takes place for a child who's trying
Wow.
to, like, just becoming a teenager, trying to fit in with everybody when, like, you now are, like, highlighted with a big yellow, marker around your head saying, "Oh, smarty pants." You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
Yep.
so you're just always trying to be, like, dumbing it down, dumbing it down. And so I didn't, and at the same time, like, the other side of that is you think, "Oh my god, I'm so smart, like, no one can compete with me," but you're in a town with, like, 100 people, like, "Oh, I'm
Right.
the smartest person on earth." So I didn't try. I didn't know how to really try and strive for something. And, I mean, no one's to blame for that except obviously me, but
Right.
as I got out into the world, I was like, "Oh," I mean, and which is the complete argument for surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you, better than you, more ambitious than you, right? You just wanna you never want to be the smartest person in the room because it's stifling. It's not, there's no growth there.
Yeah. So when you, along the way, because I can relate to all of that. Although excuse me, although I had an English teacher tell me I would never amount to anything, and I've written 8 books and she's written 0. So
Yep.
and I didn't go to college. But the I can totally relate to that, to everything you just said. Like, for somebody to, because there are 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds that don't feel like they've accomplished anything, and maybe they're afraid to start for the same reasons. They don't want to show off. They don't want, or they, whatever reason. how do you motivate people to start?
I feel like it's addictive. So you start off with like a little tiny goal. And then
Yeah.
when you achieve that, you're like, oh, okay, that was kind of fun. Because that feeling, right? That you know, Ken, the feeling of like accomplishing something. It's just like, wow, that was a rush. That was really fun. I want to do that again.
Yeah.
And then, maybe now it's a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, even if it's like a small thing. I mean, for somebody, it could be, running a race or, right. I mean, just winning a whatever, or even just accomplishing some little thing, I mean, writing my book was like a big thing. And
Show
it,
your book. I
okay,
let's see your book. I want to see your
it's my
book.
book. It,
Empower your inner millionaire, a woman's guide to finance. I'm not feeling a little bit of something
you can read
about
it, Ken. It's not emasculating.
a woman's guide to financial freedom through real estate investing.
Yes.
Wow.
Even
Okay.
something like that can be a goal, right? It could just be to write a white paper. It could be any little thing that's just going to make you feel like,
Yeah.
speaking in front of a group. Maybe you could never do that, and now like, oh, I spoke in front of a group. Oh, wow. Or just reconnecting with a dream that really fires you up.
Yeah.
Something that, I just, I remember when I was 22, I thought I wanted to do this thing, but now, you know, but I
Yeah.
left it by the wayside to get a real job, and now maybe I'm a little older and I've got the resources that I can connect back up with that goal and that excitement that came along with it. And once you get the fire under your butt, it's and a mentor can really help. Mentors, classes, anything that's going to get you connected with that, with the possibility that, that it could be a reality.
Yeah. So, do you have rental properties now? Is that your
Airbnb style. Yeah. I
okay?
don't
Oh,
find I like the you know, the
yeah.
long-term tenants as much as I like the
I'm shocked that you have a problem with long-term commitments like that.
Weird, huh? Like, "Oh, I have this tenant again? Oh my god,
Hold
it's
on.
the
This
same one."
is rock face. Like, so, okay. I feel like we could turn this into a counseling session. I'm just teasing you. So that's so
But
funny.
just Ken, let me just say a funny thing. When I see all these people with tattoos, that's exactly the thing. I'm like, "That tattoo is forever,
I
forever." Like, there is no way in hell I would get a tattoo.
I
Oh
don't
my
have any
god.
tattoos.
Can you imagine? Like,
No.
forever, like, this arm is gonna no way. There's just no,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single commitment phobe that would get a tattoo. I really don't.
So so yeah, I hear you. So you this all started right around 50 to 52. How how did you get how did you wake up the inner millionaire? I mean, did you just keep buying and it progressively started adding up? Is that the way it worked, I guess?
You know what? To be honest, part of this was because of a friend of mine who had the confidence in me to give me some backing money.
Okay.
Because in the beginning, I didn't have good credit, surprisingly. I had just given up 2 houses to short sales, right? I had gazillion credit cards. Even though they were paid off, I still had crappy credit, so I couldn't get my own loan. And a friend of mine said, "Why," because I said, I wanna buy a house. It's really important to me. I need to
Yeah.
have my own house. I need to get out of this, dorm room situation." And she said, "Well, I'll sign for the loan." This is my friend in Dallas. Some of
Wow.
the greatest people are in Dallas.
Yeah.
And she said,
They
"I'll
are.
sign for the loan." And so the first house that we bought, it was because of her, and then I was
Wow.
able to, and then
Build.
when the next house, now I had some cash,
Yeah.
and so I put down part of it, and then she and her sister put down the other, 2/3, and so we
Yeah.
did basically a BRRRR, and then, bought it. I renovated it, and we started doing short-term rentals on it. I was able to get a conventional loan, paid everybody off, and it was awesome. And that just yeah, it just kept going like that.
So how
So,
many Airbnbs do you own?
well, I actually sold some of them during
Wow.
the pandemic because the prices were so good, and, I brought them into, a co-working space that I'm creating here in Massachusetts. But, yeah,
No.
there are still 5, up
Okay.
up north, yeah,
Okay.
in New Hampshire.
I have I'm in a co-working space. Not right now, but I go to one once in a
Cool.
while. So
Cool.
I love those. I just love them.
Yeah.
Um so you and show your book again. I want to see the title one more time.
Sure. Oh, sorry. I got to get the light off of it.
Empower Your Inner Millionaire. Okay. I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. When did the book come out?
Not recently. 2021, I think.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, in your opinion, what do you think? Because here's the thing: I've been wealthy, and I've been broken, homeless, sleeping in my car. I thank goodness I've never slept under a bridge. Not yet. Knock on wood. I haven't had to sleep, outside of my car. And it's look, being wealthy is better. Like,
Right.
period. It just is. Having money is way better than not having money.
Yep.
So what do you think stops people from having it all? And I'm talking about the money, the emotional freedom, the real joy and happiness in life. What do you think is holding people back?
So that, I guess, one word, mindset, but it's also complacency, right? It's comfort, it's fear. I'm not uncomfortable enough, right? If you're sleeping under a bridge, you're like, man, I got to do something. But if you're kind of comfortable, your job's okay, you don't love it, it doesn't light you up, but it's just steady, it's dependable, right? And mediocrity is the killer of whatever it is. What's the thing? Good is the enemy of
Um,
great, and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. And
yeah,
that, so
yeah,
yeah, mediocrity is it's a real, it's a problem. Mediocrity is a killer of
yeah,
ambition. And that this idea of security, oh, I'm just going to work at this job. I'm almost, like I was 50. I could have said, oh, I'll just, stay here at this place and do this thing because it's good enough. And until you just say, like, no, it's not, do I feel fantastic? Right? Do I feel it's lethargy, right? It's inertia. It's,
yeah.
ugh,
I mean, look, I'm a product of the 70s and 80s, as are you. And there was this weird programming that took place from somewhere, um, that everybody had to, grow up, decide what you wanted to be at 18 to 20 years old, go to college to be that, get a job being that, and retire from being that, and then die. And that never excited me.
I don't know why. Which part? Didn't
None of it. None. Like, I was always like, I didn't graduate from high school because they said you didn't get a biology credit in 10th grade. They told me this 3 months before graduation. I knew it, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And
What is
apparently it
biology?
was. It was. And they're like, you have to have that credit to graduate. I'm like, I aced trigonometry, analytic geometry, algebra 1 and 2, advanced algebra, every other college prep course. And biology? I hated biology. It sucked. That's why I failed and left it. I didn't go to class. And they're like, well, you need that to graduate. And I'm like, see, this is stupid. I said, I literally said that at 17 years old. And I said, well, then I'm out. See ya. And I left and I never went back. And I've had a lot of college graduates work for me. They couldn't pour piss out of a boot if the instructions were on the heel. And like I'm like, what are they teaching you there? Like, because that's not real life. Like, what do you mean you don't have to knock on doors? You don't have to go cold call or do what? Like, what? Like, you got to figure out life, man. And
Yeah.
like, college, yes, education's important. Those books back there are not there for display purposes. I've read those books. I
Yeah.
read all the time. And
Yeah.
so, do you study still? I'm sure you
Oh
do.
my
That's kind
God.
of, yeah.
Well, and among other books, every night I read 2 pages of Think and Grow Rich. And when you do 2 pages, it gets you through the book twice a year. Yep, exactly.
Laying right next to me
Yep.
all the time.
Yep. And I'm in mastermind groups where we read it, and I mean, it's one of those books. It's got a lot of the different foundations that you read and tons of books have come out of that.
Yes.
You'll find like The Go-Giver. It's right in Think and Grow Rich, right? Somebody read that and said, "Oh, I think I'm going to write a book about that," and off they went. There's just so many
That's my
seedlings
buddy
of great
Bob
ideas
Berg
there.
and John David Mann wrote that book.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
friends of mine. That's a great book.
It is a great book.
But you're right, and that's the thing is so okay. You study still every day. You study books like Think and Grow Rich. I'm sure you read other books.
Oh, yes.
How important is that to your success? How much do you relate that to your success?
100%, Ken. That and surrounding yourself with other people who think the same way. Because I mean, I'll go out to dinner with like friends or, I'm not really in touch with people I went to school with, big surprise, but but
You
even
don't go
other
to class
friends,
reunions?
Yeah. No, I haven't been to any. But I'll go out to dinner and they'll be talking about, "Oh, did you see The Bachelorette or whatever?" And I'll be like, and the whole conversation is going, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah," and I'm thinking, I have no idea what you people are talking about. And I just sit there
Right.
quietly and do my thing because there's just so much. And then like during the pandemic, oh, it's all death and doom and gloom and blah 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 blah. And people I knew, people in my mastermind groups and stuff, they're like, "Wow, I found this great way to pivot my business and do this and this and this." So it's it's what you fill your head with. And 100% you have to be intentional about what goes in there.
Amen. Totally agree with you.
I mean, I love when you were interviewing Brian Tracy and every book he talked about. "Oh yeah, I got that. Oh yeah, I got that one." Right? I mean, he's the epitome of that, right? He'll just absorb a book and then he just regurgitates it into a nice, easy to read format, right? He'll read 10,000 hours of books in order to create one book that kind of summarizes all those concepts.
My buddy Ramey wrote, "Can You Really Think and Grow Rich?" I spoke to the Napoleon Hill Institute, their 150 coaches yesterday, to the whole group globally. There's so many spinoffs of just that book alone.
Right.
And there, there's so much more available. And I that's what this show is about, is it's helping people get unstuck, like, and sometimes they don't even realize they're stuck.
Well, so Ken, I had read 10 years earlier. So say I'm in my 40s and someone said, "Oh, Think and Grow Rich." So I read it cover to cover. Oh, that was nice. Put it on the shelf. It didn't talk to me at that time. I wasn't ready to understand it. I didn't read it like the right way. And it was just all superficial. I read it the way you would read a novel.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did that. And I'm still not rich. What's up with that?
Right. Right.
You have to, it's mindset. It all comes because once you get the right mindset, all the resources you need just start flowing into you like magic, like, oh, you meet this person that's really cool and interesting, and they are helping you with this. And then you meet this other person, and all these, people and things just start to come to you once you get the right mindset. You're clear about what you want.
Yeah.
And you believe that you can accomplish it, that you can receive those things. And then you just do, right? It's like, it's magic. That's all.
I always say, I wrote this in my first book, and it's a Wayne Dyer quote, who's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, spiritual teacher of all time. And that is, pain is the predecessor of all wisdom. And I think that you talking about you woke up on your 50th birthday living in a house full of 20 something year olds at 50. She was 50, y'all. So
just saying, it was not too late for me.
Hey, Justin, thanks for sending me over to Ken, who made me feel really good about myself. But you woke up at 50, and it was that moment of clarity came because of the pain, the emotional pain of realizing, like, what the heck am I doing in life?
Yeah.
Right.
And then seeing my aunt so accomplished and so still with it at 100 and saying, get over yourself.
Yes.
50 is not a death sentence. Get going,
It's not.
Yeah.
I feel like my life is just starting.
Yeah.
Like I really do. I feel like, man, I can't. First off, I can't believe I made it to 55. But wow, now that I have, let's
Ooh, the
go.
sky's the limit.
Like yeah. So, Christine, I think you're awesome. Your story
Thank
is
you.
incredible.
Thank you.
What do you? One last question, and this is a tough one. When my wife and I met 13 years ago, we opened our first office, and I've done web development stuff, website development for 30 years. She was global VP of marketing for two $500 million a year companies. And it just was like a, great partnership. We start up this company. We hire some employees. We're running on, receivables and cash flow, and everybody's getting paid except for us.
Yeah.
And one day a guy knocks on my door and says, "Hey, boss, there's a guy out in the parking lot looking in the windows of your SUV." And I'm on the phone. I'm like, "Beat his ass. You're bigger than me. Go." And like, what are you talking about? And he's like, he's got it blocked with his tow truck. And I'm like, oh God, no. They were there to take my car because it had, and so I stood there with my employees and watched my car get towed away. And it was quite possibly the most humiliating moment of my life because I'm like, don't worry, you're still getting paid. And how do you like, and so I can remember a moment where I thought, what's the point of being here? I mean, I've done all this work. What is the point of even going on? And there are people, especially during the pandemic, that suicide rates skyrocketed. I mean, just went. If somebody called you and they said, Christine, I've tried everything. Everything that I know, I've tried. I can't figure it out. I can't make it work. I don't know what to do. I'm just ready to give up. What would you say to that person in that moment to help them get through it? Because you and I know it's going to change, but what would you say to help them?
I don't know if I'd have a Band-Aid or a panacea for that. I would just want to ask them a bunch of questions to kind of reconnect with what brings them joy, because the more you focus on the bad, the more bad comes, right? I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. I mean, and
Yes.
how can you change that mindset with them so
Yeah.
that they are attracting some good stuff in, so that they're going to get some rays of hope. And I
Yeah.
don't think, like I said, I don't have like a white candle to give them, but I would just try to reconnect them with what fires them up, whatever, like, why did you go into this business in the first place? What were you hoping to, what was your dream? What was your goal? And to try to fire up some of those excited neutrons again and get you thinking in the right direction. I'm sure I would hand them a couple of books.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but one of the people who I coached, she was in a horrible relationship. She felt herself trapped there because she was only working part-time.
Yeah.
And she said, there's nothing I can do. I just lock myself in my bedroom. I hate my life. This really sucks. And we talked it through and talked it through and talked it through and found some things that she is uniquely good at, reconnected to a dream that she had as a younger person that uses her unique skill set. Cause we always think everyone else has all our skills plus their own, but it's not true, right? We have to be reminded of what makes us amazing and special and what our superpowers are. And the
Yeah.
more we talked it through, and then she, we kind of lost touch. She was just like, okay, I'm going to, think about it, whatever. She
Right.
texted me. I did what we talked about. I started my business. I left my husband and things are going great. It was just like, so such an amazing, amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's nothing like that.
Isn't it amazing though? And Grant Cardone taught me this probably better than anyone. And that is, if there's negative people in your life, and sometimes they can be sneaky, like you don't even realize they're negative, but until you really dissect it and go, wait a minute, there's that biology word, dissect.
See, you do need that in life.
Yeah. Yeah. But you really, but you really put it under the microscope, and you go, wait a minute, they're doing these little passive aggressive things, and these little tiny digs in life that just may not like call you ugly, but it's enough to you feel it, right?
Yeah.
And so Grant says when you identify somebody like that in your life, you have to cut them out. Like,
You
they have
have
to
to.
go,
Yeah.
period, no matter who it is.
I know, because it's often a family member
It's
who's doing
often
it because they love you.
oh yeah,
Because
yeah.
they love you.
When in
Love me a
fact,
little less, would you?
yeah, right. It's the crabs in a bucket. Like, don't get too big. My buddy Glenn Morshower talks about that all the time. He's like, the saying, don't get too big for your britches. It's like, well, what? I mean, it's intentionally to keep you down, to keep you
Right.
small, to keep you at their level.
Exactly.
And so I think all the stuff you've talked about, it's so important to get around the right people, and you've said that many times on this show.
Yeah.
So important.
It's vital. I
Yeah.
mean, you are the 5 people. You are the sum of the 5 people who you surround yourself with. You're
Amen.
the average of their income. You're right. So just go meet some better people, some people who are more like the person you want to be. And if you can't, go to the library, because everything you want to do has been done before, and somebody wrote a book about it. So go find it and read it
Amen.
20 times, and right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. So true. Wow. You're right.
Thank you. I love to hear
Christine.
that.
Yeah. I don't get to
Feels
say
good.
that very often. So I'm kidding. I tell my wife, okay, fine, you were right. I hate saying that, but anyway, Christine, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being on today and sharing your wisdom and your laugh, and it's been fun.
Ken, it's been awesome. I really love talking to you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's
I'm
a real
very
joy.
grateful to have had you on. Thank you to Justin Breen. And
Yes,
thank you to anybody watching. And if you shared this out, an extra thank you goes to you.
definitely.
If you didn't share this out, there is time to redeem yourself and go ahead and share this out. So I'm going to end the live stream, but Christine, if you'll stay with me,
Sure.
I would love to chat with you for a minute. And then and Zena is on here. My wife is on here.
Oh,
There's my
I'm
wife.
flattered.
Yeah. So but thank you all. Appreciate all of you. Christine, thank you. Have
Thank
an
you.
awesome weekend, and make sure you go follow Christine everywhere.
Thank
By
you.
the way, is there a website where people can find you?
So the easiest one is chrismccarron.com, because, like every ridiculous serial entrepreneur, I have 47 websites. But from there, you should be able to find, my courses, my podcasts, my real estate stuff, my co-working space. You can probably cyber stalk me from there, whatever. You should be
Okay.
able to connect with everything from there.
So hopefully I spelled this right. chrismccarron.com.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yay, I did it.
You're
Okay, there
right,
you
Ken.
go. Somebody type that in the comments for me. chrismccarron.com, www in front of it, so it's clickable. Thank you so much. Hey,
Thank
Karen
you.
Griffin. There's Karen Griffin. Hey, how you doing? All right, everybody have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much. We'll see y'all soon.
Thanks, Ken.